Think about this for a moment. When your partner makes a sexual advance on you, what actually happens in your body? Do you get excited and turned on most of the time? Or maybe you're like many of my clients who, instead of getting excited about sex like maybe they once did, they end up clenching up and freezing instead. They start feeling contracted in their body and they start giving excuses about why now isn't a good time and how they're too busy or they're too tired and they're just not in the mood. Does that sound familiar? Well, if that's you, then I'm very excited for you to listen in to our very first anonymous podcast coaching session with my first anonymous guest who came on to explore her blocks to desiring sex more with her partner. Please note that the session was edited to ensure anonymity and to condense the time so there wouldn't be any long pauses or anything like that. In this session, you'll notice the number one block that tends to come up for clients when I first dive in with them for coaching: inner child. That's right. If you're struggling with lack of libido or desire, it's very, very likely that your inner child has something to do with this. Your conditioning. Tune in to our first anonymous guest today to see how we reparented her inner child, and we also empowered a new identity to show up in her sex life instead. If you're interested in this type of support, then the first step to get started is to book a pleasure assessment call with me at the link in the show notes. It's a free consultation that I offer people to help them get clear about what their next step is to move forward with their goals and desires for their sex life and their relationship. And if you're interested in doing an anonymous podcast coaching session with me as well, you can apply for a spot at the link in the show notes. If you're new to the show and you want to stay connected, be sure to head to www.tillystorm.com or go to the link in the show notes to download my 5 days to epic sex and pleasure for high-achieving women training. If you took this entire podcast of 243 episodes and you condensed it down to just 5 episodes, then these are the 5 episodes that I'd want you to listen to first. You can download the training for free at the link in the show notes. I hope you enjoy learning what it's really like to enlist the support of a top 20 holistic sex and intimacy coach in the world, such as myself. Yep, that's me. And that you are inspired to actually take action yourself by booking the pleasure assessment call at the link in the show notes to find out how I might be able to support you. I hope you enjoy the episode. This is the Multi-Orgasmic Millionaire Podcast, the only sex podcast for 7- and 8-figure conscious leaders who want to embody their pleasure and have the best sex of their lives. I'm Tilly Storm, top 20 sex coach in the world, and your host today. Yeah, let's go into that. So I'm going to invite you into a process, into your body mind, to just kind of explore. So this is going to be like a 5 senses reality process. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if it feels comfortable for you. And then we're just going to explore what's going on inside that might be in resistance or fear to you having this desire to desire sex more with your husband in particular. Okay. So just go ahead and getting in a comfortable seated position. Taking a deep breath and just bringing your focus and your awareness to this present moment and beginning to allow a vision to come to your mind, almost like a movie screen in your mind's eye, playing this vision of what it would actually be like for you to desire sex more with your husband. And when this vision begins to drop in, I'm just going to go over with you sense by sense, all 5 senses, and you'll just state out loud. We'll start with sight. So when you are desiring sex more with your husband, what do you see around you that lets you know that this is your reality, that you're desiring sex more with him?
So maybe like the lights are dim, it's not like so bright, just so that I'm not been distracted by like a load of stuff, in the room or whatever, that it's just the darkness is just sort of like helping me to fine tune my other senses.
Yeah. And who might you be with, or where are you located?
In my bedroom with my husband.
Okay. And tell me, what is it that you hear around you that lets you know that you're desiring sex more with him in this scene?
There might be music.
And what is it that you touch with your hands or feel inside of your body when you are living this reality of desiring more sex with your husband?
My body feels more turned on and open. So my nipples kind of feel activated. I feel like energy going through my body rather than just heaviness.
Awesome. And in this scene, when you're desiring sex with your husband more, what is it that you smell?
Maybe it smells the sheets smell nice. I smell his body, not like an odorous smell, just like a sense of knowing that there's a human next to me.
Yeah. Awesome. And what is it that you taste in this scene when this is your reality?
As I think about kissing him, my lips just want to be more open, so I'm just kind of like tasting more air.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to read this back to you. And as I do, I want you to allow yourself to step fully into this five senses reality as if it were happening right now. So, when you're desiring more sex with your husband, you see him and yourself in your bedroom with the lights turned down dim. You hear the music in the background. You feel your body turned on and open, nipples activated, energy going through your body. You smell the smell of sheets and his body, and you taste the air in your mouth. And just noticing any thought pattern, any emotion or sensation that might arise inside that feels in fear or resistance of this actually being your reality.
Yeah, there's definitely a vulnerability there.
Yeah, what's that feel like inside?
Well, there's a vulnerability of me initiating it, and then there's also sometimes when I initiate it, sometimes then I sort of like tense up when it starts to happen. And so it's like I'm like saying to him, come here, but then when he does, I'm like, stop.
Yeah, and can you share, like, what does it actually feel like in your body to tense up when you envision him approaching you and being in this vulnerable position?
It just feels like a clenching of everything, kind of like a contraction.
Is it in any particular location of your body or just all over?
Kind of all of it.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you could just drop your awareness into the sensations that you're feeling as you even envision in your mind's eye of having this sexual encounter. And just start to notice what happens when you bring awareness to this contraction and this clenching.
It's uncomfortable. And it creates a barrier between me and him.
What is this barrier?
Um, it's like my body rejecting him.
Yeah. Could you ask your body, why do you reject your husband?
Just feels too much. Like it just kind of feels aggressive. Feels like I'll lose control.
So it feels too much, too aggressive. And then there's a fear of losing control.
Hmm.
Yeah. And who's afraid of losing control?
It's a younger self who would drink a lot and she would then lose control and it would be inappropriate.
Yeah. Okay. Can you envision this version of yourself in front of you?
Yeah.
Can you share with me what you see or feel as you look at her?
Um, yeah, she's younger. She's like 20, 20, like 3 or something, 22, 21. And she just doesn't know much about her inner world.
And what do you notice about her? Does she look sad, angry, happy, content?
She just looks like a stranger in her own body. She's trying to navigate the world, but she just doesn't really know much about her own emotions, her own body, and she's just doing her best.
Okay. So I'm wondering if we could embody her, if you could take her on as if you are her for just a moment. And I know this might sound a little uncomfortable, it might feel uncomfortable to go back in time and become this part of you again. There's just for a moment. Does that feel possible?
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm going to ask some targeted questions directly to you as this 21 to 23-year-old version of yourself. And you're going to answer as her. So, what did you learn about pleasure, about having desire, about initiating sex at this time in your life?
I liked the attention, and I felt powerful.
Yeah, what else did you learn about this power and the attention that you could get?
I didn't know any other way to get it. I really wanted to be open about it and not shy or scared, and so I kinda even when I felt a little uncomfortable, I just went with it.
Yeah. So, would you say that you put yourself out there sexually quite often to feel powerful and get attention?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the result of that?
Mhm. A lot of awful sex.
Yeah. And what did you do as a result of that?
Felt a lot of shame and guilt and loneliness.
Mm. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us while we have you online right now that you learned about desire and initiating sex and pleasure?
Yeah, I would drink a lot because everyone was drinking a lot, but then it would let me lose control, and then I would do things that I really wasn't proud of the next day.
And would you say that you shut down some of your desire because you've figured out that if I get attention and have a lot of sex, maybe it's not so good, and therefore that's something I should feel ashamed about?
Yeah, it was like I wasn't able to discern like what was good and what was bad. And then also, my breasts were really sensitive and my nipples, and so whenever I would allow a man to touch them, it would, if we're in a place or whatever, it would lead to sex, and so I resented this about my body, that I would lose control.
So it sounds like you learned to use sex to be in control, and
Hmm.
now it makes you feel out of control.
Hmm.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, or does that feel complete?
I think that feels complete.
Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to have you switch roles again. So you're going to become your present moment self. And you're going to witness your early 20 something year old self in front of you. And I want to invite you to use this opportunity to share your present moment empowered narrative, your present moment truth about what you know to be true about your sexuality, your desire, your pleasure, the way your body works. What would you share to this version of yourself that she really needed to hear back then, but she didn't have anyone to tell her that then?
I would tell her that some of the feeling that she's feeling right now is loneliness, and that she's not going to find it with these men or one night stands or sex. It's not really what the whole thing is about. It's okay to have sex, but the desire that you feel is for connection and not sex. But you just didn't know that at the time. You were just so confused. And it's okay because you needed to feel powerful and you were powerful. You don't have to be ashamed of any of that. You had fun. A lot of people didn't. And that was the age to have fun. So it's okay.
Anything else you'd like to share, or does that feel complete?
It feels complete.
Okay. All right. So I want to invite you to switch places again. So just taking on that early 20 something year old version of yourself. And as this version of you, what do you most need to thrive in your world at this age? What would you rather be doing other than being responsible for the present moment sex life as an adult woman?
Just feels like my nervous system is just like really tense. I just need to relax that.
What would support you in relaxing your nervous system?
Just appreciating everything I had, all the friends I had back then that I really was, um, loved and that I really did belong amongst my friends and all those anxieties that I would secretly carry. They weren't real. They were just my mind playing tricks, my nervous system taking over.
Yeah. And as this early 20-year-old version of yourself, what would you like to be doing instead of being responsible for your present moment sex life? Would you rather be hanging out with your friends, going out and partying? Like, what would be the most fun thing for this version of you to do right now?
Yeah, I think she'd like to be out dancing.
So, just giving her permission to do that. And where would you like to invite this version of yourself inside of your body to reside so that she could feel the most safe?
Maybe in my legs.
So just giving that a moment to sink in and integrate. And I'm curious now, who inside of you or what inside of you do you feel can help you get the best results in terms of bringing your desire back to have sex with your husband? Who inside of you knows how to do that or already wants that?
The teacher.
Tell me more.
So the teacher is able to identify how to learn the best techniques and instruct instruct myself and instruct my husband, who is very willing to learn, just had confidence to speak up and a willingness to speak up.
Yeah. And can you envision your inner teacher who can help you get what you want in front of you?
Yeah.
And what do you see and feel as you look at her and witness her?
Um, there's a danger that she's a very head driven person. So just reminding her to be led by the body. And so instead of her looking like a school head mistress, she looks like a hippie, like a free loving hippie.
Awesome. Okay. And she knows how to have desire. She knows how to contact desire and to bring that online and to initiate when she desires. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So we're going to switch places and you're going to embody her. What's it like to be this free loving hippie teacher who knows how to own her desire, who isn't afraid to initiate sex with her husband?
It's still difficult. It's still vulnerable.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, if you could take her on for just a moment and envision your present moment self in front of you this time.
Playfulness. That's what's needed.
Yeah, playfulness. And as this empowered version of yourself, this teacher inside who knows how to have fun and play and sex again, and who isn't afraid to initiate and go after her desire, what words of wisdom or advice would you have for your present moment self? What would you tell her?
Just breathe into the body. When you feel yourself tense up, just pause and go slower. Listen to yourself.
Beautiful. And switching places one last time, just becoming your present moment self. And just envisioning that you have these two parts of yourself, your younger 20 something year old version and your inner teacher. And if you want to, you could even envision them sitting across from each other and just noticing how you've given the power and the authority of choice. The one who's really running the show is the one with all the old stories about sex and desire and pleasure. And that's the 20-year-old version. And noticing on the other side, you have this more empowered version of yourself who can help you get what you want.
Mhm.
And I'm curious if you could just out in your mind's eye, hand over the keys and the authority from your 20-year-old version to the inner teacher inside. And maybe it doesn't feel possible. Maybe she's really reluctant to give that power away to this inner teacher. But just notice what comes up.
Yeah, she is willing. She's kind of relieved by it.
Yeah. And how does it feel to give that power and authority of choice and of choosing to your inner teacher?
Okay.
And whenever you feel ready, just allowing that empowered identity to step back home into your body. If your inner child wants to be in your legs, where would this inner teacher want to reside?
Mm, in my solar plexus.
So just envisioning her coming into your solar plexus, knowing that she has a home here. And just coming back whenever you feel complete. So, what did you learn?
That's good.
What did you learn about yourself and why
Um,
you are struggling with lacking desire for your husband?
well, it's a nervous system thing, and then it's a taking the whole thing too seriously thing.
Yeah.
Um, I've done a lot of work around that, letting go of like the shame of the past thing. That it just is a recurrent thing that I'm hopefully nearing the clearing out fully of that. But now because I pay much of I'm really focused on it. I really want to clear it and heal this part of me that has sort of gotten like super serious, and so to bring in some playfulness into it. Mhm.
Yes, beautiful. Well, this is so common to have these parts of us that are outdated versions of ourselves that have these belief systems and patterns that create certain nervous system functions in us later on that's so unconscious. But it does cause us to freeze or to tense up. Like when you said, when your husband does approach you, it's like too much and you contract and your whole body clenches. That's because of that old outdated programming about what she learned about sex. She learned, well, you know, if we use it to get power and to get attention, then it's not good. We just end up having really terrible sex. And I don't want terrible sex. So I'm just going to shut that part of me down. Right. And then it's like anytime sex is presented to you, it's like, shut down, shut down, shut down, because that's what your body's been imprinted for. So now it's about learning how to work with that response, with that freezing response, but also taking on a new identity like we just did. So even with the nervous system work, all true transformation, it takes learning how to be someone that you don't feel that you are, right? It takes embodying a new identity completely. And sexuality, it's like the one who can be playful again, the one who can be open and curious because she doesn't have all of these preconceived notions about sex, right? So
Mhm.
it's about letting go of all those old stories and saying, and kind of like a beginner's mindset again, like, oh, sex is to have fun. My husband is not going to hurt me. Like, we're not going to have unconsensual drunk sex, right? Like, I'm in a safe environment now. It doesn't have to be like it was when we were 20, right? So within the safety of your relationship, you can begin to bring in more play and more fun and trying new things and being open and curious and really stepping into that new identity of the one inside who can show up and have desire and have fun again. So, what are some actions that you can take towards embodying that version of yourself?
Well, I've got to communicate with my husband. Um, I found some resources for him to start doing his work, and so I have to um, bring those to him. And I have to just be really gentle as I do that, just explaining to him what's happening so that he doesn't feel rejected or anything like that as it's happening. And the other thing is that, throughout like majority up until a few years ago, is like I would drink so much, like all my sex was like some stage of drunkenness. Even if we were just like, a glass or two. And so that is like a social lubricant. And so that coming into it like totally sober, it's great because like everything feels heightened, but the vulnerability also feels heightened. So just being aware of that. Mhm.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we've got actions to communicate with your husband about the resources that could help him, because yes, this is a two-way street. Explain to him what's happening for you and what's coming up for you. Are there any other actions that would support you in stepping into this new empowered identity who does have desire for your husband?
Can't think of anything. Can you?
Well, there's all sorts of stuff, inner child stuff obviously takes time to really resolve. Usually, just the awareness of it isn't enough to actually change it. So, becoming aware of how that version of you, the 20-year-old version of you, is still showing up and really catching yourself like, who's showing up right now in this interaction with my husband? Um, when he does make advances on you, who's showing up right now is the one who's, oh, I'm clenching, I'm tightening up. Oh, right. That's that version of me because that's her automatic response. So having an awareness and knowing like when I clench up and when I contract, that's this old pattern, that's this old version of me. And having a conversation with yourself in real time in that moment of like, okay, you don't have to show up in my sex life in this present moment, right? She even said she felt relieved when you let go, when you gave her that opportunity to not have to show up in your present moment sex life with your husband. So it was like a relief because what 20-year-old wants to be responsible for a grown woman's, you know, relationship with her husband that she's been in a relationship with for a long time? So just having that conversation with her in the moment and then calling in that empowered version. Oh, right. I'm going to be, give her a fun name. So, what could be a fun name that you want to call her?
Well, actually, Barbara, because it's not such a fun name, but Barbara Streisand's character in Meet the Fockers, that's who's sort of coming to mind.
I love that. Yes, that's wonderful. So you get to call in Sexy Barbara, Sex Educator Barbara, whatever it is, Fun Time Barbara, and just, telling yourself, okay, 20-year-old self, we don't have to show up now. This is just old conditioning, old pattern, old story. And Fun Time Barbara, let me embody her right now. And that process takes time and it takes work and, constant affirmation of like, hey, is there anything you need to the younger version part of you? Because she has these fears and she has the shutdown for a reason because she doesn't want you to have terrible sex anymore. So she's kind of like a protector in a way, but she's
Mhm.
also not helping you get what you want anymore either.
Mhm.
So we get to step into embodying and becoming this Barbara version of yourself. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Hey there, conscious leader. Are you serious about upleveling your sex life and relationship right now? Then you are in luck because if you have been on the personal growth and development path for some time now, maybe you've been to therapy, or maybe you're even a coach, a healer, an entrepreneur, or a therapist yourself, and you're wanting to embody your pleasure more deeply and become a multi-orgasmic millionaire yourself, then I want to invite you to a 1-hour complimentary pleasure assessment call with me that you can book at the link in the show notes or at bit.ly, that's bit.ly/pleasure assessment. In the pleasure assessment call, I'm going to take a full diagnosis of your present moment and past experiences with sexuality and relationships. And then we'll dive into your top goals and desires for these areas of your life. From there, I'll be able to give you your top 2 to 5 blocks and obstacles in the way of you creating these goals and desires and give you the exact next steps that you get to take to overcome them and that you must take to overcome them. I have done over 700 of these calls, so there is literally nothing I have not heard. I know it can be hard to talk about these things and to crack the door open on your sexuality and talk about it, so that's why I want you to feel as comfortable as possible to open up and share with me. This is a private call, it's just you and I. So if you're someone who wants to feel more confident and sexy in your body, to tap into your feminine energy and bring that into your business, to increase your sexual desire and drive, to get out of your head into your body, to learn how to manifest with your sexual energy, to have mind-blowing orgasms in different ways, or maybe just to reignite the spark with your long-term partner, then book your complimentary pleasure assessment call with me today at the link in the show notes or at bit.ly, that's bit.ly/pleasure assessment. I'll see you there.